Oh, there we go.
We're live?
Yep, we're live.
All right. So this week is week 6. Jason and Logan will both be teaching us a topic. Jason will be going first with manipulating CSS class properties. If you want to go ahead, Jason, I'll go ahead and take the floor.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so code topic 7, manipulating CSS class properties. This was one that I knew how to manipulate properties using the ID, but the class was something I learned, but it's not too horrible. So most styling obviously is in a style tag, but it can't, anything inline overrides what's in the style tag. So if changes need to be made during runtime, you can do it using JavaScript, and it adds it. Everything that I've done adds it actually inline, so it overrides everything. So there might be a way to change it in the style tag, but I'm just going to go over how to change it inline. First, it's important to make sure you have an ID or a class tags or both. For this lesson, we'll just focus on the class. So I just put here, like we have a div class equals, and just put the class name. So if we want to reference the class, and you guys probably already know this, but to reference the class in a style tag, we'd use a period. So dot class name, and then we can, in brackets or curly brackets, put using, I forget what it's called, but anyway, all our different styles and what they're equal to, separated by semicolons. So using that, if we want to change the font family, for example, using JavaScript, we could do the following. So I put, say I was familiar with a get element by ID. So this is get elements by class name. And we tell it which class name we're looking for. We're going to assign everything. Now get elements by ID returns one element. Get elements by class name returns all of the elements on the page that have that class name. So it's an array. And that was one thing I got mixed up on a little bit. But so it's going to assign an array, which if I only have one class defined as class name, it's only going to return an array of 1, right? But so it's going to define this variable class to modify as class to mod. It's going to assign that as an array. So then we need to loop through all of them. So I say, starting at 0, we're going to loop through to the maximum length of class to mod and increment by 1. And then inside my curly brackets, I'm going to say class to mod and I. Now, if we know which class we're looking for, say there's 5 classes and I want to change class 4, that, or I should say, not class 4, but element 4 with the name class name, you could just put a 4 in there, right? Or actually 4 would be 3, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. But in this case, I'm looping through everything. So just whatever has the class tag of class name, I'm going to loop through them all. And I'm going to, so I do that dot style. So I'm setting the style dot font family equals, and I put Arial or whatever we want to put in there. I'll show you a few other examples here too. But one note when we're doing this, like I said, JavaScript returns all the instances of that class name in an array. So if there's only one reference to that class name, the array length will only be 1. If there are 3 references, there'll be 3, and it's required to loop through those iterations. Like I said, it's not really required. You can put which one you're looking for in here, but I just loop through them. So get elements by class name is useful for when we're changing references to that class type. So if we want to change, like down here, for instance, I have 4 different divs, all with class 1 as the class and unique IDs. So if I want to change all of these, like say the font, the color, whatever styling we want to change, borders, whatever, we can do the get elements by class name and change everything at once. If we want to do just like whatever's inside this one div here, this second div, we can do get elements by ID, but we're doing class stuff. But I just wanted to show that differentiation there. So changing the class style will change all the content in the above divs, and changing the ID style will only allow us to, or will allow us to change just one. So here I have an example. Inside our style tag, I have dot class, whatever our div, so that everything in here, so this text, we're going to say that class name, the font is going to be Verdana, and color is going to be blue. So that will be in this font, and it will be blue. If we want to change that, we can implement that code that I just talked about. So we're going to say get elements by class name, and we're going to say class name because that's what I called it. It's going to assign that array of everything, which is only one because I only have one of these, to this variable. We're going to loop through all of those one at a time, and I'm going to set, there's a couple different options here. One is you can say style.css text, and you can say font-family Arial, or Arial, however you call it. I call it Arial, but, and then separated by a comma, and then you can say color red. You can do it that way, or you can .set attribute. So instead of style.css text, you can do a .set attribute, and you can say we're changing the style. So you're changing the attribute of this class, and we're changing the style attribute. And then we put in here exactly what we would put up here. So font-family equals Arial, whatever you call it, semicolon. And oops, and it didn't, that is one difference, and I'm not sure, maybe if you guys know better. Up here we have to put it in quotation marks, and down here it didn't say we had to, so that might be a difference. Does anybody know?
I do not. I did notice that a little when you were talking about it, but I have no idea why one wouldn't and one would.
So yeah, the example I looked at didn't have them in there, so I'll and I guess we wouldn't because we have our brackets here, or not quotation marks. What are the single ones called?
Apostrophes? Oh no. Well, I don't know. Single quotes, I thought. But
sure. So the single quotes, we'll call them that. So since it's within the single quotes, I guess we wouldn't put, the code might get confused. So anyway, don't use them. If we want to do a single, so that's if we want to change multiple styles for that class, we can just list them all in there like we would do up here in the style tag. But again, if we want to change just a single style, we can say class to modify and which index we want to change, or loop through them. .style.font-family, and you can say equals whatever it's equal to. Then you would say down here, you do another line that says .color. So you can put them all together like that. You can separate them out if you're only changing one. So when changing styles in a style tag, they're set using kebab case. Kebab. I don't know how to pronounce that. But that's the hyphen, so it's one word hyphen another word. So we'd say font size colon 12 pixels, semicolon, background hyphen color, colon red, semicolon. When setting styles using JavaScript, one style at a time, we use camel case. So that's instead of font hyphen size, it's just font size, but then each beginning of each word is capitalized, right? That's camel case. So lowercase font and then capital S for size. And down here we would do the same, background and then a capital C for color. So it's the same that you do up here, but it's just a different case. So you don't use the hyphens. You just use camel case. If we're using the style.css text method, we use kebab case, and the same as in a style tag. So we still use the hyphen here to separate our words. And set attribute, we also use kebab case, so we use the hyphens to separate them. These will all insert the style inline and override any styling in the style tag.
So
That's
everything
good.
except for JavaScript uses the kebab case.
No, even these are JavaScript here. Let's see. Like this is JavaScript. It's just using a different. You can do the individual style dot and then what style you want to change, or stylizing you want to change. Here, CSS text. This is all still JavaScript. Like for instance, let's see here. So this is all inside our script. This is all JavaScript. So you can use CSS text, set attribute, and you still use the kebab case. The only one that you don't, it's still JavaScript, but the only one you don't, when you use the camel case, is when you're setting them individually. So when you do .style .font family, you would use camel case. Does that make sense?
It does. Seems like it would take more time, though.
What's that?
When it seems like when you're doing them all individually in JavaScript, that'd be more time consuming.
Yeah, it's only if you want to change just one thing. Otherwise, yeah, you would do, the set attribute or the CSS text, and change it that way, especially if you're changing a bunch. Sure. So one thing I wanted to show briefly, this is my example of this topic that I submitted. So all I did was create a list over here, and then I added all of my styling, my initial styling inside the style tag up here. Then this is here. Then I have one div that has a class called content, which is my image and my text. And I do set the style up here, but then down here, depending on what I click, so if I click on color scheme 2, the ID is color 2, and so down here, I'm going in my script, I'm going to go look for color 2, and that's going to be B. So when I say b.onClick, I'm starting a function, and so this is what's going to run when I click on this. So I set everything independently here. I did all the independent stuff before I learned that you could do it all together. So I might go back and change this so it shows I'm a little more versatile, I guess. But so I'm changing the class picture, and I'm going to change. Well, actually, I can't do these all together because they're all different classes. So they have to be equal. So the picture class, I'm going to run through all of those iterations, which is only one. I'm going to set the border color to blue. Right now, you can see the initial is green. In paragraph, I'm going to set the text style to blue. And the content container, which is this entire container here, which is this div called content. Content container is this article that contains all of this, the buttons, the div called content, all of that. I'm going to change that background color to light sky blue. And then I'm going to change the background color. Then I changed these colors to light gray. There's better ways to do this, but that's not what the assignment was. But anyway, so if I click on that, it changes to blue. So that ran this text here, or this code. 3 does all the reds, which down here, red, maroon, and Indian red. I can go back to 1, which is the initial, but it's also green. I can change the font. So down here, you can see I added, so on D, I'm selecting just the paragraph class, and I'm changing the font family to Comic Sans MS. So it changes to that. And then 2, it goes back to Verdana. So, excuse me. So anyway, I just wanted to show that the difference there between each of those. And again, I'm setting them independently, and I guess I'm doing that because they're all individual classes. So if I was going to change a bunch of characteristics, inside, for this class, I was going to change a bunch of different things other than just the color, just the font. I could list them all together using one of those other ones, the CSS text or set attribute. So anyway, that's what I learned manipulating CSS class properties using JavaScript. I'm sure there's a million other ways, but that's the way I chose. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you were to go to because you mentioned that they change inline, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, if you go inspect right now, does it?
Yeah, it actually changes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if no, that's a good question. That's how I really learned that. I was told it did that, but let's see. Let's see, main. So let's see. So you can see background color, light sky blue.
Oh, yeah.
It actually, and it highlights them. So it's changing border color, red color. Yeah. It actually changes the code on the screen, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that way, when you change it that way, it puts it in line. So it overrides everything up in this style. So you can go in here and change this. I'm sure there's a way to do that. I didn't look that up, but I figured this way is pretty good because you're wanting to change it and this will override any. So this is kind of like your initial setup, and then you go through and actually change things in line.
Yeah. Cool.
If that makes sense.
And
all right.
And
yeah, go ahead.
This is your PHP page?
Yeah, it's in PHP. Just it's .php because I have some code that I import. I don't want to, I don't want to actually. Let's go up here. Okay. Yeah. So up here, so I have. Let's see. No, not that one. That's CSS. Actually, this one I don't have a lot. Actually, this one I don't have any that I'm importing outside other than my CSS, and that doesn't have to be PHP for that. Okay. And some of the other ones I actually pull in code from other folders, like like scripts. So this JavaScript, I'll actually pull that in. So if it's PHP, I'd use that. But
gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, this one I actually could go change to HTML.
Gotcha. All right, that's it for me.
All right.
Hey, any other questions? Good.
Good.
All right. Hey, thanks.
All right, so we'll move on to Logan's topic 8, I believe.
Yeah, can we make sure that it's recording my screen?
Yeah, so when you're screen sharing, there should be a thing that says stop and present to everyone. If you click present to everyone, it should just do your screen. I didn't click that. Yeah.
Let's see. Because when I go to screen share, it says share the contents of the Hangout, your entire screen. Yeah. So if I do that.
Yep, there you go.
But now it's going to go.
Yeah, you'll just have to minimize that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Let me.
Oh,
sorry. Hang on. Getting lost here. So I just need to minimize the Google Hangouts. Gotcha.
Yep.
Let me minimize that. Okay. We'll go to presentation. Starting with here and do slideshow from current slide. Okay. Can everybody see?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so CSS3 transitions and animations, how to trigger them with JavaScript. So research, looked up a couple of different sites, saw a lot of cool examples, one of which I want to share with. at the end here that I found that I just thought was just too cool. But so it transitions within CSS. So this one's really focusing on how to use transition CSS with JavaScript. I thought we'd start back and just focus on transitions using CSS itself. And so talking about possible make transitions within the CSS code. Hover, the mouse hovers over something, so that's usually good for, you can make something flash or make it change color. Hover, the mouse hovers over it. Active, whenever something's clicked. Focus does something very similar to active. Like how focus and active kind of differentiate is like active means like this is the thing you're actively clicking on, and focus means that you've made it the focus and it will remain that way until it loses focus, and then it will shift to whatever the new focus is. But they're both very similar in that regard. Checked, so that gives limited effects for checkboxes. So you like somebody clicks a checkbox, you can make it, flash or make it large, have it disappeared, or things like that. It's being disabled, so when an element's added or removed is when you would use that. So if you're taking something away, adding something on to it. The transitions within CSS work best when limited to simple animations. And then we can move on to using JavaScript. Transitions in CSS are applied to an element and specify that when a property changes, it should do so gradually. So from the examples that I've seen, a lot of them have to do with using animations to just really bring the site to life, to just for eye grabbing. Really, it just looks nicer. So it says these transition properties allow elements to change values over a specific duration, animating the property changes rather than having them occur immediately. It offers more control as you do. So basically, the difference between transition and animation, just you can have a lot more control afforded for it. You can change the speed, you can change whether you're reversing it or not. And yeah, JavaScript's the trigger really for what happens. And here's a question of why use JavaScript as opposed to just doing everything through CSS. And it's kind of like what I was talking about before about with JavaScript, you can stop, pause, rewind, slow down, and you don't have that quite same depth with CSS. One of the examples I saw took a couple of like beating hearts, they're just like little, cartoon heart shapes, and they're just beating beating up and down. But whenever you would move your mouse over it, the heart would get really large. And it had two examples, one with CSS and one with JavaScript. And so when you move your mouse over either one, it gets really large. But then when you pull your mouse away, if you're doing it with JavaScript, then the heart shrinks back down to normal and then resumes beating. But with CSS, when you move the mouse away, the heart just immediately shrinks back to its original starting place. So that was really kind of eye-opening for me, just showing that when you're working with JavaScript, it does give that extra fluidity. And there'll be an example here coming at the end here. But yeah, the one thing it talks about how JavaScript's more complex, and we kind of saw that with, in your previous example, just how complex that code could get. But just it does give you more options, which is nice. And this one at the bottom here is that transitions in CSS are great for just like bringing in a navigation menu from the side. Just little minor, not really too complex things are fine to just do in CSS. Let's see, it says to trigger elements transition using JavaScript, talk about class name on the element that triggers it. And we talked about class names in the previous lesson to great effect. So this one talking about pausing animation. So it says to pause an element's transition, use get compute style and get property value at the point in the transition you want to pause it. So does that make sense about how you need to you basically just need to know when you want to do it. And one of the things that they talked about were keyframes. And so if anybody here is a animation buff, you know about keyframes. Those are the main sources of action. Then they'd have the keyframes and in-betweens. And so you have the keyframe that you'd start out with, and then you'd send it to somebody who do the in-betweens and then draw all the other little drawings they would get from one keyframe to the next. And that was one of the things that they were talking about. And as I was researching this, is that you need to keep track of the keyframes. Like if you've got an animation and you realize that to do one loop of it takes like 10 seconds, and then you measure every 2 seconds as being a keyframe, and you just count how many steps it takes to get to that, and then that's how you sort of time when you need to have the pauses or the transitions in order to have it all match. And then so the match game animation, which is I found that was pretty cool on this site called The Art of Web. So I was going to see if I couldn't pull that up. Let's see. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
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 What was that? What was that URL again?
Oh, right here. The artofweb.com / JavaScript, and then this is the CSS animation demo. But for the actual website, it's just CSS animation. So then just cut off the demo part here at the end. But so you see how he starts with this one card here? Well, so using the animation in JavaScript, you can look down here. It shows the source code. And so it has a style sheet for the CSS animation, the CSS animation 2, using JavaScript. And so we can look on here, and so this shows just sort of setting everything up for how it goes. And then over here, they've got all the card values. And let's see. I just found this really incredible. It has a whole thing for shuffling and dealing the cards function there. The math functions. So basically, what happens is when you click on a card, you can watch the animation here. So you click on it, it brings all the cards there. And so then you click on some, and you're just doing a match game.
Interesting.
And we find a pair, goes away, and the animation brings it over to there. So it's something that somebody made, and the code to do it, it's all here. It's just a sort of a springboard starting point, just showing you what's possible. And then they've got the card graphics here, which you can even use for that. But it's amazing what all you can do there. I'm gonna jump back to the.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could do that with just CSS and JavaScript. Thought you had to use Flash and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's all with JavaScript. And it's just let me go back to it real quick, because again, I think it's very interesting. So let's see if we can find here, because it has on one of the things here, it has like a rotate 180 degrees. So that's how the getting the card to rotate when it's going from the deck to out there. And so it talks about for moving the card to the pack, when it's going down. So the turn card face down, because when you get it out of the deck, and then this one's put back in the deck. So it's pretty cool. Let me there we go. So then one thing I want to talk about is a state of play. The animation play state property of CSS is useful when you need to pause an animation and continue it later. And this is what I was talking about the hearts earlier. That's when CSS animation is paused using an animation play state, or in the case that I gave, for example, and again, I could look it up, but it's the one we see the hearts beating, and then when you mouse over it, it pauses it. Move the mouse away, it resumes. But in CSS, it's the animation will seem jerky and choppy each time it resumes because it just resets back to the starting place. Whereas when you use JavaScript, it gives you more fluidity there. So here's another example of just changing colors when it mouses over. So I thought this was pretty cool. You can have a whole set range of colors, and you can have it to where when you mouse over it, it pops up, and then also changes the color down here. So yeah, there's a whole lot you can do as far as using animations and colors really make your website pop. And in fact, the site point, which is one of the resources we have access to in the class, there is a on site point. They have their recommendations are top 9 animation libraries. So on site point, definitely check that out because it can give you a lot of ideas for how to incorporate animations using CSS and JavaScript. And you can either write down the URL or you can just make a note, site point, animation libraries, and it should be one of the first things to pop up.
Sweet.
All right, but
Pretty
that was
cool.
oh, thank you. That was my presentation, though.
All right. Do you guys have any questions?
No, I think that's something that's the next thing I got to do, and I'm just gonna have to do some research. I've never done anything like it, so
Yeah, I haven't either. I haven't used CSS too much.
Can you two both possibly upload your presentation in the folder? We can go back and take a look at it.
Yeah.
upload like the file of it, or
Yeah, if that's okay with you guys.
oh, like you mean the PowerPoints or the actual video we're recording?
Not the video, the PowerPoint.
Oh yeah, sure.
I can put it on there. Sure.
That'd be great. I could use them as resources since you guys did such a good job.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that for me, but you know.
Yeah, you guys did pretty dang good, I think.
Yeah,
Oh.
just
A lot better than I can do.
just take it while you have it. So.
That's right. All right. Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sounds good.
All right, same time next week.
Yeah, same time next week.
Sounds
DJ
good.
and I will be teaching, and I think Jason will be leading.
Well, I'll be leading. All right. Sounds good.
Good, guys.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.